Welcome everyone to our webinar about preventing workers falling from trucks. My name is Manu Raghavan. I'm the Principal Advisor for Manufacturing, Transport and Logistics Strategy Group from Workplace Health and Safety, and I'll be your facilitator for today's session. This webinar will focus on a recently run campaign in Queensland on preventing workers falling from trucks. We anticipate that today's session will go for approximately 30 minutes, and the topics covered will include mechanisms of fall incidents within the transport industry, results of the campaign, including results of workplace health and safety inspectors' visits to workplaces to identify the risk related to fall from trucks and trailers, some suggested control measures to prevent risk of fall from trucks and trailers, the various types of resources available for the transport industry, and also towards the end, we'll have time for questions. I now have the pleasure of introducing my co-worker, Grant Phillips, who is our presenter for today's webinar. Grant has been working with Workplace Health and Safety for over 16 years in a variety of roles, including electrical licensing, compliance, equipment safety, and policy. For the last 5 years, Grant has been working with the Manufacturing, Transport and Logistics Strategy Group as a Senior Projects Officer. He has been lead on the research, development, and management of the statewide campaign for preventing workers falling from trucks. I'll now hand over to Grant to get us started.
Good day, everyone. Thanks for attending. Originally, this all began in late 2013, and Workplace Health and Safety Queensland began an internal review on falls. Basically, this was from a Safe Work Australia report titled Work-Related Injuries and Fatalities Involving a Fall from Height. This basically stated that between 2009 and 2011 in the transport industry, there are in fact 3,100 serious injury claims from falls from trucks, with more than 12 fatalities and around 50% of the falls claims having 6 weeks of time off work, which is quite substantial. Because of these high rate, of serious injuries and fatalities from falls from trucks and trailers, we began consulting with transport operators, owner-drivers, businesses, and also our transport safety networks. After this consultation, Workplace Health and Safety Queensland began researching about falls in the transport industry and its supply chain in 2013. As a result, this became a priority focus area in our Road Freight Industry Action Plan for 2017, which was titled Working at Height. After our research and discussions held with the industry at the Transport Safety Network meetings, 3 common areas where falls were occurring in the transport industry were identified. These were drivers working on the truck, cleaning the truck, or getting in and out of the truck. Workers or drivers walking on the trailer, working on the trailer, and climbing on and off the trailer. And finally, around the depot or the site where their truck or trailer is parked. As a result of this, a campaign was proposed to begin addressing 3 areas to try and help reduce fall-related incidents. There are a number of different approaches undertaken during the campaign based on our research. These mainly included 30 workshops targeting the transport industry, with about 400 attendees coming to that. We gathered a lot of information about the industry from that one. 12 mini case studies on industry initiatives, 2 industry forums focusing on design issues, and a short film. However, the 2 primary approaches were 145 workplace assessments and 12 toolbox talk style discussions on site. The 145 workplace assessments conducted by our inspectors aim to promote the key falls risks messages and provide guidance directly to workplaces, and take a snapshot of the transport industry practices using observational checklists to record the risks and hazards. After these assessments, we analysed the data gathered and identified that more than 30% of the assessments had high-risk activities, risk-taking behaviours, and poor vehicle and trailer design observed by the inspectors, which we would consider quite high. When the 30% is broken down, we noted it was 16% of the high risk were around the cab, and astoundingly 71% was around the trailers, and 11% at ground level. The assessments also revealed that high risks were evident across all types of freight tasks, including vehicle and trailer types, and at sites throughout the supply chain, such as depots, warehouse, retail, and retail sites, rural sites, I should say. When looking at trucks, the high risks observed during the workplace assessments included that there were no 3 points of contact to the entry of the cabs, workers were climbing at height to perform mechanical maintenance and startup checks on the truck, and drivers were climbing at height to clean the truck. There were also a lot of design problems associated with truck cabs, such as the trucks weren't at the right height and making it awkward for the driver to get in. Trailers actually had the highest amount of risk observed and were mostly related to poorly designed ladders and steps at 14%, workers climbing at height onto the trailer to securing loads, workers climbing on top of the trailer where there are unprotected openings with no fall protection, ladders or steps unsafely located on the trailer, plus the lack of access to the trailer often forced workers to use fuel tanks or tyres to climb up, which can be quite slippery. The risks we saw during the assessments at ground level were around vehicles and trailers indicated that workers had to walk on surfaces around load areas and ramps contaminated with water, diesel, mud or ice. Loading bays and ramps often seem to have a lot of ground hazards, which could result in slips, trips or falls, and that a lot of the steps and access areas around loading bays and ramps were considered unsafe. After the outcomes of the assessments, Workplace Health and Safety Queensland conducted 12 toolbox talk style discussions on sites, basically to discuss the risk of falls using a simple risk identification tool that we had developed. This would basically help enable these businesses to review their own falls risks and come up with practical ideas and solutions to control the risk of falls. The recommended makeup of this group would normally consist of drivers, a mechanic from a workshop, a WHS officer or advisor who would act as the coordinator, and someone from management team like a supervisor or a team leader. These workplace visits also required a truck and trailer to be on site for the group to assess. This is quite essential as the group would walk around and identify the risks. So how was the tool used? Well, the first step was to identify potential falls risks. WHSQ staff and a senior representative from the workplace would lead a group around the vehicle and trailer to try and find risks and tick them off on the tool pictured in that slide. During this process, we would help workers consider things such as the type of activities that are carried out on or around the truck or trailer, the behaviours of the workers when they interact with the truck and trailer, for example, carrying a cup of coffee while getting in and out of the cab, and the design of the truck and trailer. Step 2 was to write an action plan to prioritise the falls risks. So the groups would return to a meeting room to discuss their findings and would collectively agree on the falls risk priority. Then they would discuss controls to mitigate this risk, which could include documenting any interim controls and long-term solutions and timeframes to introduce the changes. This same group had regular meetings to review the agreed outcomes. The following 3 examples are what some businesses came up with during these on-site discussions, which cover off on the main 3 focus areas that we discovered during our research. which include the cab of the truck, the trailer, and at ground level. What you'll see here reflects the practical examples of businesses which reduce the risk of falls for their drivers and workers, often in a practical manner. During the first visit that we did to a workplace for an on-site discussion, drivers identified some of the following risks with the cab of their trucks. That one was that the internal handholds on some of their trucks were very hard to see. This was an issue for them because these handholds were part of the 3 points of contact to climb in and out of the truck cab. Most of the drivers said that they couldn't see the internal handhold, especially at night. They ended up using the inside of the door to climb up, which was not designed to support the weight of a driver. So what did they do? After evaluating their options, the mechanics trialled changing the colour of the handholds to yellow, with a relatively inexpensive and long-lasting paint on their highest risk trucks. The feedback from the drivers indicated that they were using the more visible handholds. But since then, they have actually begun retrofitting their Brisbane fleet with this safety feature and also incorporated this change into their regular vehicle maintenance program. During our next visit to a workplace, the workers there identified some risks with their trailers. Basically that their trailers had unsafe ladders or no ladders at all mounted on the tippers. The drivers highlighted this as a risk as they frequently need to climb up to inspect the load or make an adjustment. The mechanics and drivers through consultation provided a range of solutions, and these included the simple things: adding high visible non-slip material to the rungs of the existing ladders to make them easier to climb up, but more importantly, installing new and safer design ladders in comparison to the ones pictured. They also attached 3 points of contact stickers next to the ladders and near the doors on the trucks as a reminder for drivers. And crucially, providing refresher training during the toolbox talks for drivers and workshop staff on how to use the ladders safely. This workplace on this slide identified falls risk at ground level, and this is basically from slipping on waste material on and around the wash bays. This workplace reviewed their waste removal process from the wash bay to try and find a solution. The workers identified that a safe access system could be installed. It was also proposed that waste materials which build up on wash bay stairs be cleaned when the wash bay is cleaned itself. Work instructions were also prepared for washing the truck and how to operate the wash bay, and subsequently toolbox talks were used to explain these new work instructions to workers. So just to recap on some of the falls risks and suggested ways to manage them that our inspectors have observed and also that we've seen. Some risks that we've seen around the cab of the truck would include slippery handholds, such as the chrome one pictured, using the bull bar as a ladder where workers often climb up to wash the truck or remove bugs, etc. Some other risks around the cab can also include hard to see handholds. As demonstrated in this industry, I found it hard to see where the handholds are. So you can see the driver is using the inside of the door, which is not designed for that purpose. Also, climbing up to hard-to-reach parts of the truck to clean or perform mechanical maintenance, which is a common activity. Poorly maintained trucks with serious defects can often lead to a fall. And one of the bigger ones is the first step to the truck can often be too high off the ground just because of the design of the truck itself. Some examples that we've seen from the industry to reduce or eliminate the risks with the cab can include improving the grip on the footholds, which is a simple solution, ensuring that there are 3 points of contact to assist the driver in entering the cab, also installing the handholds and footholds at a suitable height. Some other solutions we've also seen from industry for the cab of trucks included attaching a cheap LED work light to the steps of the vehicle. So when the door is open, it shines a light on the steps and the ground at night. Also designing or modifying the truck so that maintenance and cleaning can be done at ground level. Some factors that we've seen that can add to the risk of falls from trailers have included climbing and walking on the top of the trailer where there are unprotected edges, climbing at height over or around oversized loads, workers climbing at height to secure the load, also jumping down from the trailer, which is surprisingly causes a fair amount of injuries. Also using the wheels as steps. Some other risks around the trailer can also include poorly designed ladders or steps that are unsafely located on the trailer, which you can see there in the image that sometimes that might not be the best spot for that based on the load position. Some examples that we've seen from industry to reduce or eliminate the risks around trailers have included a mobile work platform to eliminate the need to climb onto the load. These can be expensive, however, we have found them to be effective. Also arranging the load so workers have no need to climb up on the trailer to secure it. Some more solutions that we've seen in industry for trailers can include simply pallet jacking freight, so there is no need to climb up on the trailer. Also designing or modifying the trailer surface with a slip-resistant material, something that can be done cheaply. Designing or modifying the load area so the worker does not need to climb up. Some other factors that we've seen around that can add to the risk of falls at ground level can include walking on surfaces around load areas and ramps that are contaminated with water, diesel or mud, which is quite common. Also walking on poorly designed surfaces and access steps around load areas and ramps. Other risk examples can include walking in poor weather conditions at night or in direct sunlight or shadows. Sloping ground, uneven and slippery surfaces we've found also can cause injuries. Some ways that we've seen from industry to reduce or eliminate those types of risks is a simple traffic management plan. Manage your foot traffic by clearly marking out where they should be walking in the most safe area. Also making sure that they're wearing the correct footwear for conditions. Some drivers might be wearing thongs or whatever, and they may not be considered suitable. Other solutions around the site could include just having a sales team conduct a site visit, and then they can assess the suitability of the customer site and put that in the new contract, which often includes a site map so drivers know where to go and where it's safe. Also advise and support drivers to contact their depot if they have concerns with the site. Installing non-slip surfaces where spillages are likely to occur, and also look at ways to prevent spillages in the future. And also ensure loading bays and ramps are adequately lit and protected from the elements. So I think that ends my part. Off over to Mano.
Thank you, Grant, for sharing the Preventing Falls from Truck campaign with us. We have allocated time for our participants to forward their questions related to this campaign. If you have any specific questions, please type them in the chat box or question and answer box. Grant, while waiting for participants' questions, I have a question for you. What advice would you give to a medium to small size transport companies that don't have dedicated safety resources to be able to go through a similar risk management process?
Yeah, well, I'll say that's a great question, not just because it's coming from you, Mano. But
thank you.
Thanks. But what we've found is the larger organisations and businesses already have existing safety management systems. So when you get owner drivers or small transport operators, they don't have the time or the resources to be able to implement a full safety management system. So that's what we found when we're doing our research. So as part of that, we looked at developing a straightforward risk identification tool, 2 pages long, that any business could pick up and use, essentially, because we realised that owner drivers are pretty busy, and they might not have the time to be able to go out and do a full system. So yeah, that's where we kind of targeted this campaign, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Grant. It looks like we have got one question here from our participants. And the question is, I noticed that a lot of the handholds and footholds use the yellow color. Is that a government requirement?
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, it could be not personal preference. Yellow is probably known as a colour that is quite striking, and it provides a lot of contrast. You'll probably notice in yellow is used in like public transport quite highly. So it's something that's understood as a good colour to use for that. However, if you had an alternative, I mean, by all means, I don't think we have any particular requirement about the colour.
Okay, thank you. We've got another one here. I'm not sure where or how to get information from other businesses about practical ways that they have looked at their falls risk.
I mean, to be honest, and I think looking at our campaign is probably a good start, and it's not just because I created it, but there is a lot of good information there that's born out of a 3-year campaign based on evidence. We've developed the tools. I mean, one other way would be to link in with our transport safety networks, who like-minded businesses can discuss their own issues and solutions. Yep.
Yes, we've got another one here. Thanks for that, for answering that question, Grant. Can you comment on truck drivers' age and general health that would impact this statistics? For example, my grandfather fell from a truck cabin working at the age of 77 and broke his hip, amongst other things.
Yep.
And I have.
Yeah. That's actually something we consider in this whole process. So the average age, I think, for a driver is about 55, and quite often they'll have unhealthy sort of conditions. So they might be a little bit overweight or something like that. So what we found is the height of the footholds would affect, and where the placement of the handholds would affect the way a driver could enter and exit a truck. Now, what we had with earlier when I was talking about the using the inside of the door, what came out of that one was the driver used the plastic section of the inside of the door, and it broke away and fell because he was a bit overweight, and I think he broke his leg or his shoulder or something along those lines. So the statistics are represented highly on people at that age group. So 55 to 65 is probably where it's sitting at the moment. So I think the design of vehicles, would either aftermarket or through manufacturers, need to consider that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. We've got another question here. Early on, you touched on the risk assessment tool. There's a question here: where do we get the forms?
Okay, like the risk identification tool?
Yeah, risk identification.
Yeah, the information for that will be on the end slide. That'll include the campaign page, the risk identification tool, general guidance, and a film.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. I've got another one here. The website, yeah. How long did the risk identification and mitigation process take for those businesses involved?
Yeah, so,
and also, sorry, how long did the business take to implement their solutions?
Yeah, so basically what happened during the 12 visits, they took from 1 hour to 1.5 hours, which is surprisingly quick. So we would rock up to the workplace, get the group together, go to their truck and trailer, get the guys to tick off on the list of what falls of risks that they saw, quickly come back with the group, come up with a priority falls risk and a solution, and then agree to time frames. So the drivers and the mechanics would say, I think this is the falls risk. The mechanics would go, I think it's going to take 3 weeks to come up with a design or a solution. And then the manager would go, yes, I agree to that. And then, so you might say 2 weeks for the drivers to go around and think of solutions with the workshop. The workshop would be approximately, could be 4 weeks, and then manager approval. And the way that tool is designed, it kind of locks management into agreeing to following through, which is we've found that quite often doesn't happen.
Yeah. I think we have got about 3 questions that are related to designs of trucks and all that. Maybe do you want to give? Can you elaborate on that about truck designs and what's workplace health and safety doing in that?
Yeah. Actually, truck design is something that we're looking at in a project actually, essentially. And what we do is I've been doing for any campaign that we run, all of the research, the evidence, the consultation with industry through the networks or whatever, we gather all that information from industry, compare it with best practice and what we've learned from our worksite visits. All the design issues we collate, and we feed that into the truck design project, and then those guys will be putting that information to other regulators. And I'll be doing that for a future campaign on safely immobilising vehicles. And I think I'll be incorporating that into all my future projects, because truck design is a pretty big issue. We're seeing a lot of aftermarket modifications that maybe should just be part of a vehicle, like a handbrake alert, or the fifth wheel should have some sort of alert, so your vehicle's coupled or decoupled.
Okay, so in other words, we are consulting with the NA.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks, man.
Thank you for that.
So yes, we are.
Looking at it. Okay. Waiting for a few more.
Okay. Yep.
Oh, here's another one. Is there a maximum height for the first step when entering the cab?
I don't think so. I could find out though. Because what it is basically is there's kind of 2 competing areas. There's Workplace Health and Safety Queensland, which we have a set of regulations, and then there's Transport and Main Roads and others who have other regulations about how things should be designed, because the vehicle is a workplace, but it's also a functioning sort of plant, so it has to follow certain things around road rules and lengths and widths through the Australian design rules. So I'm not sure what the answer to that one is, but I might take that on notice.
Yeah, and
I can find out.
Okay, that's good. If we've got another one here, I think we may have to get back to them. Got here. What are the methods used to decrease the risk of climbing rear ladders on tankers?
What was that? Usually what we've found is tanker ladders typically probably aren't the best design. So the rungs are circular and quite thin. In that previous slide, where what they did temporarily was put a kind of a piece of material so it wasn't just chrome, and to provide some grip. However, that wasn't a long-term solution, so I think they've actually gone through and designed new ladders. Yeah.
And the other thing too is that that workplaces should be doing their own risk identification and assessment process.
Definitely. Yeah.
And then look at what's the best method. If you don't need the worker to climb at the rear,
well, there's that as well.
Then there shouldn't be.
Yeah. I mean, I'll add to that. Obviously, as the regulator, we would go through the hierarchy of controls. So we would say if you can eliminate the risk, so eliminate the need to use the ladders, that's ideal. Next, you might do a design solution.
Okay.
If you can, but obviously we have to deal in practicalities about what a business can or can't do.
Okay, thank you. And I think this other question is similar to the one that we answered previously. What percentage of falls and incidents are related to older drivers? I think you've answered that.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
There's in that report at the start, the safe where is it? The work-related injuries and fatalities involving a fall from height, which is from Safe Work Australia. That's on the slides, the first fourth slide. I think that breaks it down into actual like numbers and stats about age and that sort of thing.
There's a question here about, we'll take one more question. Can we receive a copy of your presentation? And I'll answer that yes. Towards the end of this session, what we'll do is we'll have that on our website, Workplace Health and Safety website, and that will be available to all of you. And also the recording of this webinar as well. Okay. Definitely. Yep. We are now almost at the end of the webinar. We are really put for time here. If your questions was not answered today, what we will do is we will take most of these questions and get back to you, to all of you, via email. And for those of you who would still like to ask questions, please forward your questions to this email in the next slide, which I'm trying to get the slide. To this email on this slide here, and we will provide a response to you as soon as possible. We also encourage all of you to go to Workplace Health and Safety website and watch the short film and also read the industry campaign report to see what else was discovered during the campaign, which includes more industry initiatives as well. We also encourage you to use the Preventing Workers Falling from Truck Risk Identification tool for your workplaces. And as I mentioned earlier, we will send all participants a copy of the presentation slides, and the recording of the webinar will be made available on the Workplace Health and Safety website as soon as possible. And lastly, your feedback is extremely valuable to us. We will send you a survey for your feedback via email as soon as possible, seeking your comments and suggestions. Once again, thank you, and hope to see you at our next Transport Safety Network meetings. Bye for now.
Thanks, guys.